Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 40 based on novel. So let's start. Different fire constant ancient ruler, cut. With a sharp drink, the essence of Xiao Yang's gorgeous fire eyes suddenly flourished, and the streamer of the flame also flew out from the corners of his eyes, turned into a little starlight, and then slowly disappeared in the void. At the same time when Xiao Yang drank fiercely and burst out, the gorgeous fire ruler over Xiao Yang's head also moved suddenly at this moment, and cut a terrible ruler that cut the sky and the earth, as if to cut off the heaven and the earth in anger, and roared away at the Tunglong that rushed in the face in an instant. But after this 1 foot attack, the gorgeous fire ruler did not stop at all. 1 foot just fell, and another foot was born in the sky. It turned into a streamer, and joined with the previous ruler and Orn, and turned into a cross ruler and Orn together. Then it was blasted with the angry Tunglong. Boom! The gorgeous Kai Mang and the green rattan dragon roared fiercely. In an instant, the dazzling light spread all over the sky. In the vast mountains and forests, the countless ginseng trees shook constantly at the moment. A terrible momentum and pressure also spread quickly throughout the whole space. However, Luo Lao, who was deep in the mountains and forests, did not pay any attention to this, because when Xiao Yang just ordered the strange fire in the world, he, an old monster who had seen many things in the world, was already restrained by Xiao Yang's momentum. And then when he saw that different fire rushing out of Xiao Yang's body, his face became more and more shocked. The world is full of fire, but it's all in his body. Even the legendary Emperor Yang will be in Xiao Yang's body. Did this guy swallow all the strange fires in his original mainland? At the thought of this, the muscles on Luo Lao's face also couldn't help twitching. All 23 different fires were collected in his body. This courage is really unprecedented. I'm afraid that no one would dare to do such a thing in the future. This little guy, aren't you afraid of those old things coming to the door? Just a few. You actually devour all the strange fires. Don't mention those old things. If these strange fires riot one day, they will bite back. Even if they don't need to find them, there will be no residue left. He sighed in his heart, but Luo suddenly recovered. Since Xiao Yang can melt these different fires into his body and still use them so freely, he should also have his own grasp. His idea is too despised. But with a smile, Luo Lao once again focused his attention on the 2 feet. According to the situation at this time, this should be Xiao Yang's full blow. I think it's not impossible to stop the rattan dragon. Roar! With a fierce roar, the whole body of the rattan dragon was suddenly shocked, and a great power was also issued. The body stopped by Kai Mang rushed again, and suddenly rushed forward against the terrible Kai Mang. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang's face suddenly became cold, his heart moved, and the gorgeous fire in his eyes shot out in an instant, erasing the foot. After a short time, the light suddenly soared again on the sharp ruler and Orn, and the breath of terror also rose. An unparalleled momentum of terror also spread, just like a towering mountain peak, pressing on the top of all ancient Shenling trees. At the next moment, Xiao Yang opened his mouth, and a fierce and overbearing word came out suddenly. Broken. As soon as the word came out, the whole heaven and earth was suddenly frozen. Then, on the 2 feet, the gorgeous fire suddenly burst into the sky, and the raging fire rolled up like a wave. At this moment, the 2 feet turned into 2 sharp blades, which flashed over the body of the rattan dragon. Click. The sound of branches breaking came quietly. The whole rattan dragon was broken at the moment, and the green fluorescence all over was gradually fading away. The next moment, when Luo Lao was amazed by Xiao Yang's move, without waiting for Xiao Yang to relax, a more magnificent fighting spirit suddenly surged into the broken rattan dragon under the countless Chiu roots. Roar! A fierce animal roar, the body of the rattan dragon that stopped just a moment ago, rioted again, and there was a trace of dark red in a pair of huge eyes. The huge dragon body suddenly turned around, the dragon tail instantly tore the void, and forcibly bombed the oncoming strong wind. Then, before Xiao Yang had reacted, he threw a severe whip on Xiao Yang's body. Bang! The power of terror made Xiao Yang's whole body almost deformed at the moment. His bones were broken. Half of his body had become numb. Although there was blood pouring out, there was no pain at all. In his mind, Xiao Yang seems to be floating alone on an endless sea. He can't see the edge and recognize the direction. The whole person is in a state of numbness. He has lost his perception of everything outside. Roar! The rattan dragon roared up to the sky, and the trace of grey and black breath also floated out of his mouth, which suddenly changed Delo's face. Evil beast, Don't stop me. If you act again, I will seal you completely today. At the moment, Luo Laro also couldn't help it. His thin body moved in an instant, and he already appeared over the top of the rattan dragon. With a wave of his big sleeve, an unparalleled threat of terror came crashing down and pressed on the whole body of the rattan dragon. Roar. There was another angry animal roar, but the endless black breath suddenly burst out from the whole body of the rattan dragon, taking over all the terrorist power of Luo Laro's attack, and the rattan dragon, regardless of Luo Laro's anger, suddenly rioted and rushed to Xiao Yang. Bastard! Stop it for me. Seeing this scene, Luo Laro's face changed again and his body moved, so he wanted to come forward. In the void in front of him, endless black gas suddenly emerged and turned into a figure, blocking Luo Laro's way. Seeing this scene, Luo Laro was anxious, but he had to stop his body, glared at the figure in front of him, and shouted angrily. Haimu. You really can't find a way to die. If you continue like this, I swear that you will never be reborn. As soon as he said this, although he was domineering and vicious, the black figure was indifferent. There was a sneer and said, Do you really think you can kill me? Luo, although you are pretentious, you want to kill me. Do you think you are sure that even if you force the seal, you will lose your old life and kill me, maybe? Luo Laro smelled the speech, and his old face suddenly became gloomy, but under such emotion, he also had a deep color of helplessness. With his strength, it's really fantastic to kill the guy in front of him. He can't easily deal with an antique who has lived for thousands of years. Even if I can't kill you, if I seal you for thousands of years, you will be wiped out by time. In spite of this, old Koro is still unwilling. He has guarded this land for thousands of years, but even so, he can't do anything about it in the end, which really makes him helpless. Hearing Luo Laro's threatening words, the dark shadow sneered again. A pair of dark eyes like a black hole stared at Luo Laro, slowly opened and sneered. Are you threatening me? Don't forget that I share the same root with this ginseng spirit family. If I die, they can't survive. If you really want to kill me, you have to destroy countless ginseng spirit trees first. Do you really have the heart to do it? Luo Laro smelled the speech, and his body trembled slightly. His anger was unspeakable, but the more so, he had nothing to do with the thing in front of him. Jie, you want to use this boy's strange fire. After all, it's the only thing that can destroy me in the world, Jie. Seeing Luo Laro's sad, angry and helpless face, the dark shadow smiled again, glanced obliquely at Xiao Yang below, twisted his neck and continued to smile to Luo Laro Yin. Although the heart is intentional, Luo Laro doesn't know that if the guy in front of him was in his heyday, it would be impossible to overthrow him alone. Now, although only this wisp of residual soul is left to survive and want to revive, even so, Luo Laro is quite difficult to deal with him. Ancient demons are really terrible. Today, ordinary people are really unmatched. Even the strong people of the older generation should be careful. We can see the strength of cultivators in ancient times. Roar. The animal roar like thunder spread everywhere. The rattan dragon, which had turned into dark green, gave another animal roar, and the huge body suddenly shook. The speed of the forward rush was like thunder and lightning, soared rapidly, crossed the void in an instant, took a big bite, and was ready to swallow it towards Xiao Yang. At the moment, the rattan dragon is only a few feet away from Xiao Yang. In a moment, Xiao Yang will become the food in the mouth of the rattan dragon. At least, if Jiu doesn't do it, I'm afraid it will end like this. Seeing Xiao Yang approaching in front of him, the sharp light of Tunglong's pair of huge green longans suddenly flashed, and his fighting spirit was all condensed on the body surface to resist any emergencies. The more it came to this moment, it became more and more careful, and looking at Xiao Yang, it was hard to return. The next moment, the big mouth closed, Xiao Yang's body was swallowed by the Tunglong, accompanied by the gorgeous giant rule. The thunder-like sound suddenly spread, and the rattan dragon in Xiao Yang's mouth just now turned red. A hot flame breath also spread from it, so that the surrounding space could not help a burst of distortion and shock, and then it was broken under a crisp click sound. Drink. Different fire constant ancient ruler, break it for me. Suddenly, in the mouth of the rattan dragon, a slightly hoarse violent cry suddenly came out. Then, the huge tap of the rattan dragon raised up uncontrollably, and in the center of its eyebrow, a bright and incomparable fire line also divided the whole head of the rattan dragon into two parts. While the line of fire appeared, a slight sound of hiss also came out. The next moment, the line of fire with only one hair thickness quickly became wider. Everything around was completely incinerated in bursts of slight hiss and turned into nothingness. Just for a moment, the magnificent rattan dragon that was just a moment ago had no breath at all, and the only body left was like a wooden stake, lifeless. The dragon's head turned away, and Xiao Yang showed his body slowly. A gorgeous armor looks a little pale at the moment. The already pale face is also as pale as paper. In a pair of gorgeous flame eyes, the original blazing firelight is also a lot dimmed. At the moment, Xiao Yang holds the ruler handle in one hand, and the wide heavy ruler stands obliquely on Xiao Yang's right side. Compared with Xiao Yang, the flame of Lingtian on it has not decreased at all, even more powerful than before. The blazing flame turns into a flame barrier, which rises with the wind and blocks a space. Under the praise of the strong wind, it is like a flame flag. Scornfully glanced at the dead wood-like dragon body in front of him. Xiao Yang's face was expressionless, his arm was raised slowly, and the giant ruler waved slowly with Xiao Yang's action, bringing a vacuum in the void. Then, a broad light touched the dragon body like a dragonfly. The next moment, the dragon body as wide as 10,000 feet turned into a world-famous fire, like a skyfire avenue, standing in front of Xiao Yang. Hey, I can't imagine that you have mastered this strange fire-constant ancient ruler in just 10 years. It seems that you are already preparing for your trip to the world. The voice of Jiu Yu's words sounded quietly from Xiao Yang's heart, and the meaning of praise was not concealed at all. Obviously, Xiao Yang's move today was indeed beyond his expectation. Hearing Jiu Yu's words, Xiao Yang smiled faintly in his heart, but he didn't answer. He made full preparations in front of the unknown. This is what the Soul Emperor taught him. After all unknown things are the most dangerous. Returning to his mind, Xiao Yang frowned and glanced at the dark shadow in the sky. His breath was slightly heavy and asked Guyo in his heart. Old bone, this spirit tree. The spirit tree is no longer under the control of the little guy above. Hey, there are so many surprises today. I can't imagine that there should be such a powerful evil spirit ancient tree in such a corner. The words in his mouth have not been completely exported, but Guyo has already asked Xiao Yang the questions in his heart. When Xiao Yang heard this, his face changed again. It is not difficult to hear from Guyo's tone. Even he is quite surprised at the so-called evil spirit ancient tree. While Xiao Yang was talking with Jiu Yu, the three ancient trees in the distance moved again. The Tunglong was destroyed, and the three ancient trees were also affected, but under this, more was the anger of the spirit tree. Under the control of the mysterious black breath, the three ancient trees at the moment had entered a violent state, and Xiao Yang had entered their must-kill list. The strong tree suddenly shook, and the earth below collapsed. An abyss as wide as 10,000 feet appeared in front of Xiao Yang. The next moment, in the abyss, under a hissing sound, the dense dark green chio roots turned into huge rattan snakes in the wind, wrapped with strange black viscous liquid, pierced the void like a sharp arrow, crossed the thousands of miles of the sky and rushed towards Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang turned around and saw countless rattan snakes. He couldn't help showing a touch of anger on his slightly recovered face. It's really endless. There was a cold hum in his nose, and the huge ruler in his hand suddenly waved in front of him. The ruler's body rubbed the cone thorns on the different fire armor and made a harsh friction sound, which made the space around Xiao Yang's body fluctuate. At the moment when the giant ruler rubbed with the armor, the towering fire also hit Xiao Yang's whole body, completely turning Xiao Yang into a fireman at the moment. Drink. With a sharp drink, Xiao Yang's body suddenly shook, the green tendons on the palm holding the giant ruler burst, the fighting spirit on the left hand emerged, and with a wave of his big hand, he suddenly crossed from the ruler's body, and mysterious runes appeared on the ruler's body. Flame. Wave ruler. With a roar, Xiao Yang's body suddenly turned in place, and the giant ruler in his hand also turned rapidly. Before the harsh sound explosion spread, it was immediately covered by the explosion momentum brought by the giant ruler, and the space around Xiao Yang collapsed again under this ruler. After a flash, Xiao Yang stood still, and his fighting spirit had just recovered. The world in front of him was a little blurred. Damn it. The heart was unwilling to scold. Xiao Yang bit at the tip of his tongue. Under the stimulation of such heart-to-heart pain, the feeling of dizziness in Xiao Yang's mind was finally erased in an instant. Continuously squeezing the fighting spirit in his body, even if he is a semi-imperialist, he still can't afford it. Looking up, Xiao Yang's mouth finally showed a slight smile. Under the terrible threat of destroying the sky and the earth, even if the rattan snake was more, it was also wiped out in an instant. This time, it should be over. Xiao Yang tried to resist the feeling of collapse and powerlessness spread in his body, squeezed out a seemingly relaxed smile on his face, and thought with a light smile in his heart. The fierce and domineering Kai Mang instantly swept through the countless rattan snakes. Just for a moment, the rattan snakes all over the sky suddenly dispersed. Under the terrible high temperature of different fire, they suddenly turned into nothingness. The rattan snake was broken, but the power on the foot and horn was not reduced at all. With one blow, it rushed into the endless abyss below. After a shocking explosion, it was completely silent. Above the sky, Luo Lao and the shadow wanted to stand against each other. The scenes below were also seen by his eyes. At this moment, Xiao Yang broke the endless rattan snake with a foot. There was a sneer on the old face. Then he looked at the shadow in front of him and said with a sneer, "It seems that before the strange fire, you were really nothing. Today, you are doomed not to him." In the face of Luo Lao's ridicule, the dark shadow laughed. A pair of empty eyes stared at Luo Lao, and then there was a strange sneer in his mouth, which changed Luo Lao's face. "Luo Ao, you have lived in vain for so many years. Do you really think I will only stay here motionless, or do you think those guys can see me?" As soon as Haimu said this, Luo Lao's face changed instantly, his eyes turned sharply and looked into the endless abyss. At the next moment, Luo Lao's face became completely heavy. "Dead spirit poison. Unexpectedly, you refined this thing. Hehe, I haven't prepared it for you yet, but this boy is also blessed. Today, let him try it first." Listening to the dignified meaning of Luo Lao's words, Haimu smiled with satisfaction, glanced at Xiao Yang, and the horse-cold joke came out slowly. At the same time, in the endless abyss of silence, there were bursts of low roars like the roar of snakes and animals. At the moment, Xiao Yang, who stood in the sky and just relaxed, was suddenly tight again, and an unparalleled sense of crisis also rose from the bottom of his heart. Under the gaze of Xiao Yang, in the endless abyss, a thick liquid as black as ink poured out from the bottom of the abyss, and then filled the whole abyss under the gaze of Xiao Yang. When this strange river appeared, the surrounding earth also strangely changed into a dark color. All the vitality scattered at this moment. All the vegetation changed into a pile of dust in an instant. The dark liquid seems to contain the power of terrible destruction. The vitality dissipates, but the inky darkness suddenly turns into an aperture and spreads rapidly. Wherever it passes, even the void space is soaked and lifeless. In just a few breaths, the terrible aperture has spread to the thousands of ancient ginseng trees. At this time, the inherent breath of the ginseng tree has stopped its progress slowly, but even so, there are still several ginseng trees invaded by it. And just when the dark aperture still wanted to continue to invade, on the earth outside the thousands of spirit trees, an emerald green gas barrier was revealed in an instant, wrapping the whole mountain forest. At the moment when the air barrier appeared, Luo Lao and Haimu turned their eyes in an instant. Luo Lao looked at the barrier of Lingtian, and his slightly tired heart finally breathed a sigh. In the eyes of Haimu in front of him, the sharp light was also more and more sharp. When Haimu saw the barrier, there was black fog on a face that could not see his face, and the space around him was not small. However, in the end, Haimu didn't pay much attention to it after he gave a cold hum. Instead, he poured most of his heart and spirit into Xiao Yang below. Every time he looks at Xiao Yang, he always has an inexplicable sense of danger. Even when he faces Luo Lao and the real owner of the mountain forest, he has never been as strong as today. The human in front of him has obviously become an anomaly. As for Xiao Yang, at the moment when the emerald green barrier rose, he put all his mind on the monster in front of him at the moment. Just now, the viscous liquid that seemed like a black river was violently stirred up like a whirlwind. Then, under Xiao Yang's solemn eyes, it hit the sky and turned into a warcraft that was not a dragon or a snake. The warcraft looks like a dragon snake, but there is a horn on the top of the head, emitting a chilling cold light. In the diamond-shaped animal pupil, the dark light volume carries a mass of scarlet, and the meaning of bloodthirsty also spreads with it, which makes people feel an inexplicable fear of it. On its snake-like body, there are countless filaments of black viscous liquid scattered around, like a manner, covering the body under it. At its tail, however, it is also different from the ordinary snake tail. At this glance, it looks like a fish tail. The wide fish tail swings gently, and a fierce space storm sweeps through. I'm afraid it is difficult for a star-and-a-half emperor to resist for a moment. What makes Xiao Yang feel dignified most is the terrible breath of death. Under the suppression of such terrible breath of death, the warcraft seems to run out of the infernal hell. Even if he has different fire, he still feels a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Therefore, he has to face it with all his strength. At the moment when the warcraft appeared, a pair of diamond-shaped animal pupils had been locked on Xiao Yang. That little scarlet dark light blocked the space around Xiao Yang, making Xiao Yang's body unable to move. Feel the changes in the surrounding space. Xiao Yang's frown is tightly twisted into a ball, His dignified face is like dripping water, and his collapsed body feels more and more tired and powerless. The dizzy feeling that had just passed in his mind rushed like a tide at the moment, which made Xiao Yang's body barely stand in the void, and became shaky at the moment. If the space around the body had not been blocked by the warcraft, Xiao Yang would have been imprisoned in the void. I'm afraid Xiao Yang would have become a human shell and shot directly at the earth. The weakness of Xiao Yang also makes the giant beast of Lingtian burst out a deep animal roar from his mouth. The strange animal pupil looking at Xiao Yang also shows a touch of humanized disdain and contempt. As far as it is concerned, Xiao Yang at the moment is just the end of a powerful crossbow. As long as it is willing to strike at will, it can instantly turn it into nothingness. At the moment, it just wants to appreciate Xiao Yang's last struggle. It seems to be aware of the tease of the warcraft. High above the sky, Haimu's dark body twisted for a while, and then a thought came out, which made the giant beast around Xiao Yang suddenly shake. A trace of fear rose from the bottom of his heart, and then he didn't dare to slack off again. The beast's mouth full of fishy smell suddenly opened, and a strong column of light suddenly shot out of its mouth and went to Xiao Yang. The dark light pillar broke through the void in an instant. In a flash, it had appeared in front of Xiao Yang. With an extremely terrible smell of death, it roared towards Xiao Yang. Before approaching, the terrible breath of death has been overwhelming, which makes Xiao Yang's pale face surge with a touch of dead grey at the moment, just like a dying man with only one breath left. At the next moment, the dark light column like ink, with the horror of near destruction, shook through the void and fell down. A circle of terrible energy storm swept into the whole void in an instant, and the sky almost turned into day settled down again, and the night came again. At this moment, the vast space, which was originally as stable as a mountain, vibrated slightly, and the terrible energy storm suddenly bombarded the barrier, but it only brought up a ripple like a water wave, and the inner space was unmoved. Blackwood, you really do not put the old man in your eyes. You dead spirit is strong, but also not yet able to resist the extent of the old man. I have two people in, old man advised you today, or still close hands good. The faint old voice, quietly spread in the whole void, did not disperse for a long time, and the confidence in the words was even more obvious. The storm swept through, and Xiao Yang was unharmed, but the beast in appearance retreated thousands of miles under the explosion. However, the giant beast is obviously not a good role to deal with. It just recovers again in an instant, and its pair of huge animal pupils also suddenly turn and look into the barrier. Orochi, after sleeping so long, you finally wake up. Blackwood's dark body twisted, slightly strange words, but slowly spit out from his mouth. The slightly hoarse voice makes people feel strange. Listening to this, Haimu seems to be waiting for the old guy called Orochi to wake up. Hearing the strange words in Haimu's words, Luo Laro's eyebrows couldn't help wrinkling again, while Qingmu gave a sneer, but he didn't take such words to heart. Ignoring these two people, Haimu thought. The giant beast turned his head suddenly, took a big mouth, and it was a stronger lacquer black energy light column than before, which erupted again. Just in a flash, the black energy light column has come to Xiao Yang again, a blow of life and death, coming again. Haimu, you really don't pay attention to me. Let me have a look. What skills do you have? Deadly poison. Blackwood's disregard for green would also made the latter's heart suddenly rise in anger and give a shout of anger. A void outside the barrier broke in an instant. An old man in green robes also appeared in an instant. When the old man's body emerged, he was already waving his big sleeve, and a terrible fight burst out in an instant, tearing the void and intercepting the black energy light column. "Yeah, old man, your opponent is me. It's better to ignore there." When Haimu saw this, he giggled, his twisted body burst, and a dark and strange smell spread instantly. One blow stopped Qingmu, and then turned into two dark energy barriers to block Luo Laro and Qingmu outside. When they saw this, their faces changed in an instant. With their understanding of Blackwood seemed to exert all his strength. His battle was really a battle behind the back. However, the two of them finally don't quite understand that under their joint efforts, how can he grasp and be able to stop them successfully? If he fails, the result is not just that simple. He endured it for thousands of years before he recovered some strength. I'm afraid it will come to naught in this moment. Whether Haimu has a complete grasp of this behavior, or whether he really puts all his eggs in one basket, it's hard to guess. Thinking so, in the hearts of Luo Laro and Orochi, there is also a little solemn meaning. No matter what, such a powerful evil tiger, even if it is a dying struggle, can still not be underestimated. After all, they are also old monsters who have lived for thousands of years. Their strength is not cultivated in vain. In the face of some hidden dangers, They are more sensitive than those young people with empty strength, which is also one of the secrets of their survival in the world. The two looked at each other. They deserved to be old friends who had known each other for many years. They nodded gently, and then the next moment, in the palm of their hands, there was a surge of fighting spirit, which burst out in an instant and attacked the dark barrier in front of them. At the same time, the lacquer black energy light column that roared towards Xiao Yang Meng finally hit again. The strong smell of death hit Xiao Yang's heart again. The moment of death came again. Unfortunately, this time, although Luo Laro and that Qingmu wanted to save people, under the full obstruction of Haimu, even with their strength, they still couldn't break the barrier in front of them in a short time. Therefore, he can only watch Xiao Yang swallowed up by the dark light column. His anxiety can't help him at all. Boom! There was another roar. In the eyes of Luo Laro and the green wood, the shock color rose again. Xiao Yang, who was severely bombarded by the painted black energy light column, was not moved at all. The smell of death on the light column did no harm to Xiao Yang. Look carefully, the black energy light column that should have bombarded Xiao Yang hard is now resisted by a force that also seems extremely overbearing. It is difficult to move forward in the space a few feet in front of Xiao Yang. At the moment, Xiao Yang, the space around him, is filled with flame beams of different colors. The flame light column runs through the sky with great momentum. The glorious whole of the world breaks through the void and pierces the core of the endless void. The momentum is like a rainbow. These flame beams are all the strange fires in Xiao Yang's body. Under the condition that Xiao Yang almost fainted at the moment, these strange fires that seem completely silent in ordinary days finally have their own actions. Above the sky, Luo Lao and Oroki saw this gorgeous fire, and their hearts were immediately clear. At the same time, they couldn't help but feel a little envy. Tut tut, it's really rare to see the different fire protector. Although they are all sub-fires, they may not become Numenon in the future. The boy's future potential is really terrible. The people who can be selected by different fire are the real Tianjiao in the world. With the protection of different fire, the future is unlimited. But today's Xiao Yang is not only selected by different fire, but also regarded as a real emperor by different fire. He is respected by different fire all over the world. Xiao Yang's future achievements are unimaginable. Looking at Xiao Yang surrounded by all the different fires, Luo Laro's face is also a color of sigh. He sighed again in his heart, but it is also invisible. He raised Xiao Yang's weight in his heart again. On the other side of the green wood, also looking at Xiao Yang, who was worshipped by the strange fire like an emperor, the horror in his heart is more unspeakable. These people, even if they have lived for thousands of years, still have to scold demons at the bottom of their hearts. While these two people were stunned by the scene of Xiao Yang, the black wood that incarnated the black energy barrier also included it in their eyes. Seeing this scene, I can't help but feel a sense of dignity in my heart. Xiao Yang's talent is really the first person in the world he has seen in thousands of years. Such a scene is really the first time in history. But the more so, Xiao Yang's threat to him is also more and more huge. If you can't kill Xiao Yang here today, I'm afraid Xiao Yang will become his biggest disaster in the future. As soon as I thought about this, Blackwood also moved his mind, and another thought came out in an instant. The huge black warcraft also moved again. It's just a different fire protector. I don't believe it. How many times can you resist? Boom. When a black paint energy light column was broken, another stronger energy light column also came one after another, bombarding the different fire barrier, and the fire light on the different fire barrier burst out again. Under such a fierce attack, the strange fire still made Xiao Yang not hurt, but the previous terrible momentum had also fallen 10,000 feet. The strange fire barrier, which was originally as solid as a copper wall and iron wall, gradually became trembling under such indiscriminate bombing, and the firelight of Lingtian was also dimmed. The different fire protector can only resist for a while after all. When the different fire barrier is broken, it is also the real death time of Xiao Yang. When the bombardment here continued to fall, the two old people in the sky were also instantly awake. After a clearer understanding of the situation at the moment, they did not dare to be stingy again. All the fighting spirit broke out in their bodies, and their terrorist fighting skills were constantly bombarded. The power of terror is pouring on the painted black energy barrier in front of us, and the dark breath on it is also weakening. I think it won't be long before the energy barrier will be broken by the joint efforts of the two people. For a moment, under the situation of chasing each other on both sides, most of the different fires around Xiao Yang have dispersed under the fierce attack. The last protection around Xiao Yang is about to be broken. Xiao Yang, it's at stake. Bang! In the space in front of Xiao Yang's body, a burst bang suddenly sounded. Xiao Yang's last defense also disappeared at this moment. Looking at the powerful and terrible lacquer black energy light column, it still has the same momentum. It forcibly tears the void in front of it, and then it is a heavy blow, which suddenly pours down on Xiao Yang's chest. If this blow hits, Xiao Yang will die. Seeing this scene in the sky, Luo Laro was suddenly replaced by a deep anxious color on his old face. His green veins were exposed on his forehead, and his whole body was shaking violently because of the rage in his heart at the moment. The dry palm clenched his fist, and the surging fighting spirit poured out continuously, pounding on the black barrier in front of him, but the expectation in his heart had not appeared for a long time. Everything seemed so late and powerless. Looking at Xiao Yang again, the collapse of fighting spirit in his body makes him fall into a deep sleep. At the moment, he can be called the weakest time in his history. In this state, I'm afraid even a star can kill him, let alone the terrible lacquer black energy light column at the moment. Hiss. The result of the black energy light column pounding on Xiao Yang was only a light and stuffy hiss. Once this slightly unexpected sound came out, the dark wood in the sky, including the incarnation barrier, could not help but coagulate suddenly in their hearts. They were all surprised by the unexpected result. How many peerless treasures does this guy have? He bombarded their hearts twice and again. At this moment, Haimu feels like he wants to spit fire. If someone else really has a life-saving baby, you can do it 2 or 3 times. Why are you endless? In the subtle hiss, the lacquer black energy light column that severely bombarded Xiao Yang also dispersed again. A huge flame ruler with lacquer black mysterious lines all over slowly emerged in the sky. At the next moment, Luo Lao and Uroki were stunned by the fire giant ruler. Another magic weapon for Xiao Yang's life is the giant ruler condensed by different fire. The appearance of this scene is that even the huge beast can't help shaking its huge head and looking suspiciously. Obviously, as a Warcraft, it is the scene in front of the other side. Some can't believe it. While everyone was stunned, the strange black paint pattern on the flame giant ruler quickly creeped up at a speed visible to the naked eye, just like an assembly line, quickly covered the whole giant ruler. Under the strange eyes of the three, in just a moment, the wide flame ruler turned into a dark color, and even the burning strange fire on it was completely covered. The dark giant ruler does not have the slightest color. The empty darkness seems to come from the real core of the endless void, swallowing everything without mercy. Even the fighting light is completely swallowed by it. Before it, all materials are only swallowed up. When the giant ruler appeared, Xiao Yang noticed all the bones in the outside world at that time, and a look of surprise flashed on his old face, but then he turned into a light smile, deep eyes, looked at the endless void through Xiao Yang's body, and muttered to himself in a low voice. I didn't expect that you would do so to him after only 10 years of bondage. At the beginning, the Soul Emperor was not necessarily so. Hihi, I don't know whether it was because he helped you become the Emperor or... Have you really changed? When the 3 people in the sky saw this scene, they were filled with endless horror. In any case, they could not imagine that a small Xiao Yang would attract such a powerful and terrible guy. Who is this boy with terrible talent? When the giant foot was wrapped in pure darkness, in the depths of the endless void, a pair of dark eyes also opened slowly again. There was an inexplicable light flash at the bottom of the eyes. Then, it was closed again, and the surrounding space was silent again. Roar. The fierce roar of the beast, like bursts of thunder, spread endlessly, making this side of the sky vibrate. As soon as the roar passed, the big black beast opened its mouth, and its fierce suction tore the whole sky like a tornado, making the surrounding void constantly burst with bursts of explosion. The endless void burst again and again under such authority. At that time, the energy of heaven and earth between heaven and earth turned into a terrible energy column with thick and thin arms, which poured into the mouth of the giant beast and accumulated enough powerful power for its next attack. Then, a terrible smell that was many times stronger than before spread rapidly from the mouth of the giant beast, making the whole void as if it had been crushed by Mount Tai. If this blow blows out, I'm afraid it's in the heyday of Xiao Yang, and it's difficult to support the blink of an eye. The horror of this blow can be imagined. But even so, the giant ruler, which had turned into a dark color, remained unmoved, quietly suspended in front of Xiao Yang and completely blocked him behind. Such a numb action also made the giant beast suddenly angry, roared, and the suction in his mouth soared. All the energy between heaven and earth was sucked into his mouth. After staying for a moment, the giant beast suddenly shook his whole body, then took a big breath, and a terrible energy light column several times wider than his body, instantly attacked and broke through the void. At the moment of its outbreak, it was already pounding on the dark giant ruler. But the next moment, between heaven and earth, it turned into a dead silence again. Even the three people above the sky were completely silent. Their minds were shocked by the scene in front of them. After hitting the giant ruler, if that terrible energy beam with a width of 10,000 feet is like submerged into an endless abyss, it will not bring any waves on the giant ruler when it is swallowed up. At this moment, several people present were stunned. It was unimaginable that the terrible energy beam that was enough to kill a 5-star-and-a-half emperor in an instant was completely dissolved before even a minute of power could appear. Of course, from the perspective of the above three, it is natural to know that nothingness swallows inflammation and devours all things. This small energy beam is just a small embodiment of his ability. With the help of this, today, I'm afraid it's hard for anyone to move Xiao Yang. Deep inside Xiao Yang's body, next to the Bonyu, the space was illusory, and a slightly indifferent voice slowly spread to the Bonyu's ears. Today's affairs should be reported to him and wished me the grace of the Emperor. After today, whether he lives or dies, I will not interfere more. For now, these forces should be borrowed from him and told him that I will double take them back when I see him again in the future. The voice fell, but Xiao Yang suddenly rushed into a powerful pure fighting spirit, but in a flash, the fighting spirit in Xiao Yang returned to the peak again. But even so, the terrible fighting spirit is still vast, constantly impacting Xiao Yang's body. The vast space that has been filled in the cyclone also begins to vibrate violently at the moment. The surging pure fighting spirit made every cell of Xiao Yang's body completely full. In a slight shock, it was like the rage of a mountain, causing the space around Xiao Yang to collapse constantly. Just for a moment, Xiao Yang's body looked like a full balloon from the outside. The original ordinary man's physique was like a huge warcraft at the moment. At this moment, Xiao Yang's skin all over seemed to be red, with scarlet and dazzling cracks all over Xiao Yang's body. A large amount of blood gushed out, turning Xiao Yang into a bloodman from a distance. The originally beautiful face has become abnormally protruding at the moment, and the skin on the forehead has cracked into a scarlet red. In the gorgeous flame eyes, the strange fire has long dispersed, and the rest is a strange dark. The heart-piercing pain from his body also woke Xiao Yang up instantly. After feeling the pain on his body, he couldn't help but utter a hoarse pain groan with Xiao Yang's temperament. However, his actions did not make the pain from his body less. This strange scene also made one of the three people in the sky stunned. Then they felt the overbearing breath in Xiao Yang's body, and then they seemed to think of something. The look on the faces of Luo Laro and Qingmu suddenly became excited. Look at this, Xiao Yang is going to explode. Although the self-explosion of the semi-imperial strong can be ignored by them, Luo Laro is not considering these in his heart now. The only thing he thinks about is Xiao Yang's life and death. Xiao Yan Ruosheng, then they have a lot of confidence in dealing with Haimu, but if Xiao Yang dies, then Haimu is afraid that he can't suppress it again. Although Blackwood was suppressed by Luo Ao thousands of years ago, even if it was like that, he still got a badly injured body. It can be seen that Blackwood's strength is definitely much better than Luo Ao. This point can be known only from the fact that Haimu forcibly resists the joint efforts of Luo Ao Kingmu with such a posture at the moment. Although the result of this practice will lead Haimu to enter the low MI stage, he can still see his extraordinary. With Haimu's ability, even if he is suppressed here, he is sure of the preparation for the millennium. After all, a thin dead camel is bigger than a horse, and a tiger falls flat in the sun. After all, it is a tiger. Once he tries his best, even his Luo and Aomu are difficult to suppress. Today's World War I is bound to be the end of their gratitude and resentment, and that point lies in Xiao Yang, the little half-emperor who just broke in. Haimu finally deserves to be a real antique 10,000 years ago. With his eyesight, he can see that Xiao Yang at the moment is not a self-explosion, but the sudden force in his body. But the more so, Haimu became more worried. First, it was the sun fire of all different fires, and also the original fire of bone spirit cold fire. At the moment, coupled with the original fire of nothingness swallowing inflammation, and this pure fighting spirit that could not be mentioned, Xiao Yang's threat to him was already indescribable. Today, if Xiao Yang doesn't die, I'm afraid the capsizing in the gutter will fall on his head. A thought flashed in his heart, and Haimu also snorted coldly. His heart moved and controlled the terrible beast condensed by the dead poison. The breath of death all over his body also condensed rapidly, and a strong and extreme breath of death also spread along with it. With a big mouth, an energy column like a black fog shot out of his mouth in an instant, and suddenly attacked Xiao Yang with the smell of terror and death that silenced all things. At the same time when the energy column ejected, the huge body of the giant beast also moved suddenly, tore the void, bypassed the dark and empty giant ruler and swallowed it at the back of Xiao Yang. At this time, Xiao Yang's body was almost exploding, and his crazy protruding eyeballs seemed to fall out. Coupled with the blood all over his body, Xiao Yang looked more terrible. The crazy protruding eyes made Xiao Yang take the whole sky scenery into his eyes, but at the moment, he was no longer in the mood to consider those. He only knew that if he maintained his current state, the next moment, he would be swallowed by the giant beast above his head. At this moment, the black giant ruler suspended in front of Xiao Yang still has no action. It seems that the only life-saving straw can no longer be expected. In desperation, Xiao Yang also hurried to shout Jiuyu at the bottom of his heart, hoping that the stubborn old man could do it again. However, this time, even Jiuyu seemed to have no intention to do it again. No matter how many words Xiao Yang roared at the bottom of his heart, it was the same silence. Everything that follows can only depend on Xiao Yang himself. Whether he lives or dies depends on the will of heaven. The next moment, the black fog filled with the smell of death also swallowed Xiao Yang in an instant, and then, the giant beast's huge head swallowed down. Xiao Yang was swallowed by this terrible thing again. This video will end here.